Hi everyone, today we're going to be looking at comparing slope-intercept and point-slope form. So far, when we've been writing equations of lines, we've been telling you whether to write the equation in slope-intercept form or point-slope form. But today we're going to talk about how you can make the best choice of which form to write the equation in based on the information that you're given. So that's really the focus today, is looking at the information that you're given and deciding which form is really the best to use. So let's start with slope-intercept form. By now, we all know that looks like y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Okay, now that form is best to use when you know the slope and the y-intercept, or you can find it easily from a graph. So if it's easy for me to find the slope and y-intercept, I'm always going to use slope-intercept form because that'd be the most direct way. So for example, this is a case where you know the slope and the y-intercept. They're telling you that the y-intercept is -3, so I know my b. And they're telling me that the slope is 2. I know slope is my m. So now I just plug it in. So y equals, my m is 2. I make sure I include my x. And my b is a -3. So I've got my equation. So obviously if you're given the slope and the y-intercept, you're going to put it in slope-intercept form. Now here I want to look at if we're given 2 points. And I actually want you to change this first ordered pair to 0, -3. And here's why. When you see a point where the x-coordinate is 0, that's telling you that -3 is the y-intercept. Because I know the y-intercept is the place where x is 0. So in this case, even though it doesn't look like it, they're actually giving me that y-intercept. So now I know that my b is -3. Now I can use slope formula, since this is x1, y1, x2, y2. I can use slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to get my slope. So I have 3 minus a -3 over 4 minus 0. So minus a negative is plus, so 3 plus 3 is 6 over 4. My slope is 3 over 2. So now I can write my equation. I have y equals m is 3 over 2. Then I have my x, and my y-intercept is -3. So I want us to all be aware, when we see a point whose x-coordinate is 0, we know they're giving us the y-intercept, so it makes sense for us to use slope-intercept form. Now let's talk about point-slope form, and this is our newer form we've been working with. Let's see here, I'm all crooked. Bear with me a little bit here. Okay, that's better. So point-slope form we know is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We know m again is the slope, as always. And then our x1, y1 here is a point, sorry, it's curving up here, on the line. Now, for point-slope form, this is best to use when we know a point on the line and the slope, or we know 2 points on the line. So if we know one of those things, that's when we're going to use point slope form. So for example, if they tell us a point and a slope, I know I've got my x1, y1, and I've got my m, so I'm going to plug it in. I have y minus, y1 is 3, equals our slope, which is 2 over 3, and then x minus x1, which is 2, would be our equation. Likewise, if we're given 2 points, and here I notice I don't have the y-intercept because I don't have a point where the x-coordinate is 0. So if I have 2 points, I'm going to go through and use point slope form again. So now I know this is x1 and y1. I have x2 and y2. So just like above, I'm going to have to use my slope formula to figure out the slope. So I have y2, which is 15, minus y1, which is 3, all over negative 4 minus 2. So let's see, 15 minus 3 is 12 over negative 6 is negative 2. So now I have my slope and I have a point, and we can put it in point slope form. Y minus 3 equals negative 2 times x minus 2. So that's kind of the basics on how you decide which form to use. So now we're going to look at some examples and decide which form would you use to write your equation in. So let's flip the page here. So the questions here state, the directions say determine the best type of equation to use for the line with the given information, and then write the equation. So our big question is, do we use slope-intercept or point slope? That's what we're trying to decide. And we're using the information we have to make that decision. So for example, in number 1, since I have a point and a slope, that's a pretty clear case for point slope form. So now I know I've got x1 and y1, and I've got my m. So my equation would be y, now it's y minus a negative 5, which is going to give me a y plus 5, equals 2 times x minus 4. And I've got my equation. In number 2, I have a slope and a y-intercept. That tells me that I should go for slope-intercept form. So now I have my m and I have my b. So my equation is y equals 2x minus 5. Now let's look at the graph. If I look at the graph, I could definitely get the slope from the graph. I know that's rise over run, so I could look at these 2 points and I would say, I know m is rise over run. My rise, it looks like, is 2. My run is 3. So I have a slope of 2/3. Now, my first kind of guess is that I'm going to try and see if I can use slope-intercept form. If I look, I notice here my y-intercept isn't a nice number. I would have to approximate that, which we don't want to do. So I know slope-intercept form is not an option for me because I don't know the exact y-intercept. So that means in this case I'm going to have to use point slope form. So now for point slope form, I already know the slope and I need to pick a point. I'm going to go ahead and choose this point here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. So now that I have my point and my slope, I can write an equation in point slope form. We have y minus 0 equals 2/3 x minus 4. All right, I want to ignore these directions here, and I want to keep using the same directions actually, because we're really focusing on, can you decide which form to use? All right, so here we have a point and a slope. Again, as soon as I hear point slope, that makes me think point slope form. So I've got my x1 and y1, and my slope is m. So I know I have y minus a negative 3 is going to give me a plus 3 equals the m, which is 1/2, and then parentheses x minus x1 or x minus 2. Now, for number 4, I actually want to change that to f of 0 equals 3. So in this case, I have 2 points. But if you remember from our earlier example, when I see that the x-coordinate is 0, that means the y value is the y-intercept. Right? Because that x-coordinate is 0, I know that 3 is my y-intercept. So now I know that I have a b, or a y-intercept of 3. So if I can just get the slope, now I can put this in slope-intercept form. So for slope, I've got, let's see, x1, y1, x2, y2. So I can use m equals y2, 15, minus y1, which is 3, all over x2, which is negative 4, minus x1, which is 0. So I get 12 over negative 4, which is negative 3. So now I have an m and a b, and I have y equals negative 3x plus 3. Now, I could have also written that in point-slope form, but again, because I recognized that the y-intercept was 3, I went right to slope-intercept form. All right, so in the practice, you'll be doing the similar type of thing. You'll be looking at the information you're given and then trying to make the best decision on which slope or which form of the equation of a line to use. All right, thanks for listening.